Hello, this is Stuart Rosebrook at Arizona Roundup at Sharlot Hall Museum in Prescott, Arizona. Welcome back to our podcast here. We're recording live at Sharlot Hall Museum in downtown Prescott, just about a quarter mile off the plaza. And my special guest today is Steve Blair. Steve is a lifetime resident of Prescott, Arizona. He's a current trustee at Sharlot Hall Museum, and he is the owner of Blind Brothers of Arizona. Steve, welcome to the show.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Great. Steve, it's wonderful to have you here. And you and I have become friends here in the last couple of years. I've had a good time appearing on your radio show here in town on KYCA. Mm-hmm. And we had some good talks about your childhood growing up here in Prescott. And I'm always impressed and always looking forward to hearing some news stories about what it was like growing up here in Prescott. And your family has been involved in the community, some very important businesses before Blind Brothers, and been contributors to our community for a long time.
Yeah, a long time. You know, some people would claim that they got the wristbands mixed up when I was born. At least my mom did. But it happened to be at the old community hospital before it became U.S.A. Regional, which is up on Marina Street. That was 1956. And so over that period of time, of course, you know, you end up going to Prescott High School and you move on. And I went to U.S.A. College for 2 years, graduated from there. Then went to Arizona State University for a year to play baseball, and broke my ankle sliding into second. So I was done with baseball. And then the coach at U.S.A. College at the time, Gary Ward, he said, "What are you going to do with your time?" I said, "What do you need, coach?" And he goes, "Well, I need you to go to Oklahoma State." I said, "What? Oklahoma State?" And he goes, "Yeah, I just got hired as the head coach, and I want you to go as part of the coaching staff." And he said, "We'll pay for all your schooling and all the stuff that you do." And I said, "Okay, that's fine with me. I'm ready to see the world." So I loaded up everything in my vehicle and went to Oklahoma State for the worst winter they've ever had on a 100-year record. So after that year, I said, I'm going to go back and finish my college degree at ASU. Came back to Arizona State. Coach Brock at the time, he said, "I know you can't play," but he said, "How would you like to take care of our baseball field?" I said, "Well, what do you want me to do?" He goes, "I want you to be the groundskeeper." He said, "I'll give you a full scholarship if you'll do that." I said, "Okay, I'll do that." So ultimately, I went to school 5 years in college and never had to pay out of my own pocket for anything. So that was a good thing.
So small world story here. I'll just inject real quickly. And I think that's what I love about Arizona. That even though we've grown so much in the last 50 years, we're still a small state. So my mom went to North High, class of 56, and her classmates were Jim and Pat Brock. And she still, and Pat Brock remains one of her closest friends. Mm-hmm. And they still get together at least once a year. And so what a small world. And Coach Brock, legendary baseball coach.
He was, and not many people understood him. He was kind of like Sam Steiger in a way that if he liked you, he liked you. If he didn't, he would tell you. So he was pretty simple. So
were you there in the mid-'70s after the Reggie Jackson era? And
1970, 78, 79.
Uh-huh.
Bump Wills was there.
Old Packard Stadium.
Yeah, that was a great place that was. And it was a lot of different folk. I'm trying to think a couple more that came at the time. And there was Floyd Bannister, who was a pitcher, and Bump Wills. And so there was a lot of Major League Baseball players there at the time. And that was getting down to the end of Jim Brock's time. And my brother-in-law, who happened to play at U.S.A. College and then went to Florida State, was recruited after his first year by Jim Brock and came back and coached at that time, the ASU freshman baseball team. So then he ended up going back with Coach Ward as well as myself and a couple of other people to Oklahoma State. So, yeah.
And sports has always been such an important part of our community here. Little league, softball in the summers, baseball. Kelly Cordes and I have had some conversations about that recently.
Yeah.
And so it sounds like as you were growing up here, sports became one of those activities that helped define your childhood here.
If you weren't out hunting and fishing and being involved in sports, you probably were in jail. So it did keep us busy. It did indeed. Sports, when you were in high school at that time, generally speaking, you just didn't play one sport. You played two or three.
Mm-hmm.
I happened to be on the track team, the baseball team, and then played football. So in between running track, I get done running track, and then I go down to the baseball field and play baseball. So I did a little of everything. And Kelly did the same thing.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure that if you weren't in class or playing sports or doing chores, that you were doing some work for your mom and dad in your family business.
Absolutely.
Big bakery business, wasn't it?
It was. Interesting thing that you should bring up. The high school, certainly things have changed in our world, but there was never any given time where you didn't see probably 10 or 12 of us driving pickup trucks that had rifle racks in the back window with a shotgun and a rifle and your ammo on the floor, sitting in the parking lot at Prescott High School. Now, if you tried to do that in this world today, they would probably arrest you and take you to jail. But those were different times. And yeah, that was a time when we owned Wholesome Bakery and, excuse me, and that's where I learned how to drive at 13 years old. It was a panel van, 1956 panel van, and we would deliver bread to all the church camps in Prescott, Arizona. I mean, literally all of them. And there was like 7 out Senator Highway, and then some out Iron Springs Road and some out White Spar Road. So we had about 15 altogether, and I would sit on a milk carton.
Friendly Pines was probably one of those out on
Friendly Pines, Skyway Camp, Camp Wamana Camp Marapai. There's a lot of camps out there that have been there for years, but that's where I learned how to drive.
I love that. And the fact is that Prescott in those days was probably the camp center of the state of Arizona. I mean, if Wickenburg was the dude ranch capital, Prescott was the summer camp capital of Arizona.
Yeah. Camp Pearlstein. I mean, there's a ton of them. You're absolutely right. Anytime in the summer on Mount Vernon, you would see no less than probably 20 or 30 buses during the week packing kids from all over the state there.
Well, speaking of things that you wouldn't do anymore, I remember as a young kid coming over to Prescott and going to Orm's Quarter Circle V-Bar Ranch Camp.
Sure.
And every, the first 4 weeks, sometime in there was a town trip. And people wouldn't believe they would do this today, but the counselors would come in with 200 kids and they would just unload us from the cattle trucks and let us loose on downtown.
Yeah.
And then we all knew what time we were supposed to be back at the truck.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure the merchants were like, who has just been left on the streets of our downtown?
I think Friendly Pines did exactly, and Skyway, they did exactly the same thing.
Sure. The kids were, going into the Western Wear stores, buying hats and boots, getting an ice cream. And
that's right.
It actually established a real bond with many of those kids from all over the world that came here with downtown Prescott.
Yeah, it was a different place. Like you say, a different place, different time. Everybody as a kid growing up, they'd say there's nothing to do, but I think that's only in the mind of the beholder.
Right.
We always had a lot to do, but like you said, we hunted and we fished. We spent a lot of time out on the ranch, the K4 Ranch and the CVCF Ranch. So we would get out there first thing in the morning and we'd hunt all day long and come back home and be tired. But we could never ever go hunting on a Sunday unless we went to church. So we found ourselves every Saturday afternoon going out to the VA Center, to the Catholic chapel out there and going to church so we could have all day Sunday to hunt. So, yeah, we did some pretty neat things.
I bet.
Yeah.
Well, Steve, we're going to take a break here, and we're going to hear from one of our sponsors, Blind Brothers of Arizona. And we're going to come back and talk a little bit about Hormel Bakery and Sharlot Hall Museum while you were growing up here in Prescott.
Absolutely.
Since 2007, Pinion Painting has been transforming homes and businesses with over 40 years of first-hand experience. They bring superior craftsmanship and an eye for detail to every project, making your vision a reality, hassle-free. Your time is precious. Trust Pinion Painting to get it right the first time. Visit Pinion Painting today and let them transform your space. On the web at pinionpainting.com. That's pinionpainting.com. This is Stuart Rosebrook on the Arizona Roundup podcast at Sharlot Hall Museum, and my guest today is Steve Blair, and we war talking a little bit about growing up here in Prescott and being the son of the largest bakery in Prescott, and not too far down the road from Sharlot Hall Museum either.
Well, it was more of a distributorship than an actual full-blown bakery. When I think of a bakery, I think of somebody's making the product right on site, but down in the valley where you were at, there was Wholesome Bakery that was there on I-17.
Oh, okay.
And Is that me? I'm sorry. And I-17, you could drive down there and smell fresh bread, but we were the Northern Arizona distributor for Wholesome Bakery products, and we served the area from Cordes Junction down to Salome, Arizona, out to Paulden, and so we had a rather big area. We did that for 46 years, and we just got, after getting up at 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning all those years, my dad got ready to retire. He said, "You want any part of the business?" And I said, "You bet, I'll be there in 2 weeks." At that time, I was working for the state of Arizona. And I was working as a landscape park designer, and I was on leave from Arizona State, and I was hired by the federal government to design Goldwater Lake and to design A.C. Williams Park. And so
those are two big projects and two big landmarks in our community.
Very, very different. But there was myself that did that along with a guy. He was passed away. He was the engineer on site. I was the foreman, so to speak. We had a YCCA YAC group of young adults of 20 that I oversaw. We actually cut the road into Goldwater Lake and removed all the trees, put in the boat ramp, put in the ramadas, put in the hiking trails, put in the restrooms. So we did that there. And then down at A.C. Williams Park, we hand stacked the walls and built all the walls and the restrooms and ramadas there. And that was back in 1979. So then I went into the bread business, ironically. And then after that, I figured, you know what? This bread business is not getting me anywhere because I got to go golfing every day at 10 o'clock when I get done doing the bread business, and I can't keep doing that. I can't afford that. So a friend of mine, we ended up buying apartments out in Prescott Valley when they first incorporated. We bought 12 lots out there, duplex lots, and built 12 duplexes. So I took my money in retirement and everything that I had, and we did that. And those structures needed window coverings. So I got my Architectural Digest book out and went, anybody can do this. I said, and by doing this, you're always working inside where it's warm or cool, whatever the season was. So we ordered them in, I put them up, and at that point in time, I started doing it on the side, and my accountant said, you better become real and get a name because you can't do it illegally. So at that time, I was watching the Blues Brothers on TV.
Oh, I love it.
So it became the Blind Brothers.
I love that. What a great story. Yeah. So how long did you try to do both the Blind Brothers and the bakery?
God. I did that for 32 years, and about wore me out. So I got to the point where my mom was tired of doing the bookkeeping. And I just said, hey, we need to be done. Wholesome Bakery was no longer the independent bakery it used to be, owned by Lloyd Isley down in Phoenix. He sold to a big company out of Georgia, Flowers Food Company. And it became a corporate disaster as far as I was concerned. It lost individualism to the people that they served. All they wanted to do was serve the big stores. They didn't want to serve the small restaurants or the moms and pops. And at that point in time, Wholesome Bakery called me up and said, we want to buy you out. Well, they had wanted to buy us out 3 or 4 times because my dad, back in the day of Ed Isley and Lloyd Isley, had signed a contract that was the only one in the state of Arizona that had the wording in it that we would get our percentage, 25% of everything we sold, based upon any product that was produced by HBI, which was Wholesome Bakery Incorporated. Well, they didn't like that. And plus, no other outfit out there could have more than 2 trucks. They could have one primary truck and one secondary truck, and then they had to split because they didn't want anybody to have more control. Well, we had 9, and they didn't like us having 9 in all of northern Arizona. So they forced our hand, and I told them that I wasn't going to sell, that I was going to lease them out. And then they got really agitated. So long story short, at the end of the day, we ended up selling our warehouse. We sold all our assets, all our trucks, all our computers, and walked away. And my mom was happy. She was in great shape. She didn't have to do that anymore. And then I didn't have to do it anymore. But then I got caught in a conundrum with my wife where I was getting up at 1 and 2 o'clock in the morning. She says, you got to find something to do with your time. I can't start doing blinds at that time.
Right.
So there was a lady that had contacted me from Arizona Republic, And she said, we know you know the whole area. I said, yeah, and we know you sold the bread business. We want you to be a paper driver. I said, really? I said, I've never been a paper boy before. So I started slinging Arizona Republics on a motor car. And she said, we only want you to do it for a couple of weeks. Well, 2 years later, I'm now throwing papers because the Courier had the Republic start throwing. So I was throwing papers for the Courier, the Republic. I was throwing for the Mormon newspaper in Mesa, Wall Street Journal, New York Times. So I was throwing 8 different papers every morning at 680. And that about killed me too. So
you don't need much sleep, do you, Steve?
Not really, but now I do. I'm trying to catch up after all those years when I got 4 or 5 hours. That was great for me then. It's not great for me now. So I did a lot of different things.
Sure.
Yeah.
So do you have some early memories of coming to Sharlot Hall Museum?
Oh, yeah. Did a long time ago. You know, we had, back in the day when we were in grade school, back when I was at Taylor Hicks School, I was in the first year of Taylor Hicks School when it was built. And at that time, we had several different bus trips here. I'm not sure they do that. Do they still do that anymore?
Oh, yeah. We get school groups from not only all over Yavapai County, but also from across the state.
Yeah.
We're still a very popular destination, and it's a cornerstone of our programs here at Sharlot Hall Museum is our education department.
I think what's extremely interesting when you start talking about Sharlot Hall Museum is the fact that, you know, you can go through here. I don't care how many times you go through, and you just always are finding something different. And when Julie and I travel to go anywhere, the first place we go to are to museums or cathedrals. Those two go side by side because it's all, you know, all history related. But, you know, back in the day when I was a kid and I was watching Bernie Fisher and the crew move the house down the street from the old Jack in the Box site, shutting
the Bashford House,
shutting down the traffic and everything else. And this place has been here for a long time, and it's a gem in Prescott.
Well, we are going to take a quick break here, Steve, and we're going to come back and talk a little bit about the Bashford House and the Fremont House. And it's the 50th anniversary of those houses moving to Sharlot Hall Museum, and then talk a little bit about what's happening here at the museum and what you're up to in Prescott right now.
Sounds great.
For over 45 years, Blind Brothers Arizona has been the heart of window style in Prescott. From blinds, shutters, drapes, they custom design and install with expert precision, tailored to you. Whether for your home or office, trust the name locals rely on. Visit blindbrothersaz.com today or call 928-776-1845 for a free consultation. That's blindbrothersaz.com at 928-776-1845. Blind Brothers Arizona, the original since 1979. Welcome back to Arizona Roundup with Stuart Rosebrook at Sharlot Hall Museum in Prescott, Arizona. My guest today is Steve Blair. And in our break, we were talking about the importance of sharing history, not just with your family and friends, but with the next generation, and then finding those stories that remind us of our family, our past, and why it's good to remember the importance of those stories and how audacious the pioneers were that built the Arizona Territory and came here to Prescott and staked a claim here, said, I'm going to make a future here. And how long has your family been here in the Prescott area, Steve?
My dad graduated from St. Joseph's Academy, where the church is now, and he would walk down the hill to go to catechism and walk down the street and end up over there where the new Prescott Fine Arts is. That's where my mom and dad got married. So, my mom was here graduated from Prescott High School. So, you know, it'd be about 80 years, roughly. So, a while. Yeah,
and that's really significant because, you know, we were talking just in the break as well about the railroads here in Prescott, which I think, you know, when we talk about Sharlot Hall herself, her family came out here on the Santa Fe Trail. It connected to the Beals Wagon Road that brought the family across the Mogollon Rim, through Verde Valley, following those hard-built trails across that rough country of northern and central Arizona. They staked a claim out near Dewey. Mm-hmm. And it was in that time period when some entrepreneurs started saying, we need some railroads down into Prescott. We need to get railroads to Jerome. The railroads continue to be extended out to Poland, out to Mayer, and then up to Crown King. And I always thought about how visionary those railroad builders were to say, we need to, if we're going to succeed economically, we need railroads. Later it followed. The highways were built. We're just about on the centennial of U.S. 89 and Route 66. But those, if your folks came here about 80 years ago, that's about the time my dad stepped off the train for the first time in Arizona in 1945 up in Ash Fork. And Charles Orme Sr. picked him up and my little Irish grandmother from New York and took my dad down to Orme School as a 9-year-old.
Wow.
And
that's amazing.
And he took, after that, he would take the train out from Virginia to New York, all the way from the East Coast to Prescott. Okay. Get off here at the Prescott train station. And as you were saying, so many people can't imagine that we once had a passenger train service here in Prescott.
Yeah, and if you go up Iron Springs, there's a community there called Iron Springs that was really the up and up people out of the Phoenix area.
Right.
That had summer cabins up here. They're still there. And the train went right through there, and the train would stop and let them get off there. And interesting you talk about, your dad coming here. My dad came here with his family. I don't have the date etched to my mind, but they're a Catholic family of 9, and they came here because they had asthma.
That's why my dad was sent out here. Same thing.
Yep. So they came here, and my grandfather worked for the Prescott Courier as a typesetter back in the day.
How about that?
So, and then they moved on to Las Vegas, where the rest of his family went. My dad at 13 decided to stay here and worked for a milk company, and he used to haul milk from the Verde Valley over through Jerome into Prescott at 13 years old, bringing the milk in from the dairies. So, very different time.
Most definitely. Yeah. And those little dairies, served the community or served ranches. Actually, in those days, the Orme Ranch had its own dairy, and that was one of the rites of passages for students out there was to become a milker.
And they still have cattle out there because I was out there not too long ago.
That's right.
They're still there.
Most definitely. The Orme Ranch is going to be reaching its centennial in 2029.
Yeah, it's really a great place. If you haven't been out there, it's really a neat place to visit the newer buildings with I call it the iconic old buildings that were students are housed still today.
That's exactly right.
Yeah,
that's exactly right.
So that's a neat place. It was just as Prescott and all the things that are around it. I mean, I can still remember riding in a bread truck with my dad when I was a little kid, going through Dewey, and the railroad train stopping right there where Young's Farm was at a cafe called Russell's Cafe.
Right.
And then they would go on down into Mare and stop in Mare at Duncan's Cafe. Mm-hmm. And they would stop and get water, and the guys would eat and everything else. So it was just kind of not only a local train, but yet a train that serviced a big part of Arizona. But they were very, very local in what they did.
Most definitely. Yeah. Have you traveled on the restored train from Williams to the Grand Canyon?
I have not, and that's on my list to do, like the Verde Valley Railroad train.
Right.
I haven't done that either.
Yeah, I haven't done the Verde Valley. I've done the one from Williams, and it really is stepping back in time. And when you travel up 89 out of Prescott and travel over to Williams, the gateway to the Grand Canyon, they've got some, that's the fun thing about encouraging people to come to Prescott and come here to discover their heritage. If they've arrived in Phoenix and you're driving up through Wickenburg and maybe take the long way around or come up I-17, stop in Rock Springs.
Right.
And you can really take a slow roll up to Prescott and then spend a few days here discovering our history at Sharlot Hall Museum, at the Museum of Indigenous People, at the FIPPIN, in the Western Heritage Center, and just immerse yourself in our local history here. And Prescott is a great jumping off place to discover the history and heritage of Northern Arizona.
And a lot of people have done that. And what I do with the window covering company, I actually buy books from different folks about Arizona ranches. Swayze McCrane's wife, Kathy McCrane. She's still alive. She's got a cookbook. And I buy those books and I give them to customers to learn about history and heritage of the area. Excuse me. And that's where my focus has been. And I think my kids are kind of following in that direction. And that's why the things that I get involved have to do with the Yavapai County Mounted Sheriff's Posse, Western Heritage Museum. I was a sponsor there. Cowboy Poets, Arizona Cowboy Poets Gathering, the Sharlot Hall Museum, and the world's oldest rodeo. So you have to kind of not say we're going to let everybody new move in and not tell them a piece of history.
That's exactly right.
And I think that piece of history needs to, shout loud and clear that we're still here to find out many things about how this territory, Crown King, and all the things that are associated with the tentacles that come out of Prescott and how it all evolved. Yeah.
Right. All right, Steve, we're going to take one more break here, and then we're going to finish up. If you're looking for the store that has everything, Prescott True Value Hardware might be your answer. From having that part to fix that leaky faucet to decorating your garden with charm, they've got it all at Prescott True Value Hardware, and a friendly face to match. For over 30 years, they've proudly served Prescott, supporting neighbors like you and local nonprofits along the way. So take time and visit Prescott True Value Hardware at 846 Miller Valley Road. They're more than just a hardware store. So this is Stuart Rosebrook at Arizona Roundup at Sharlot Hall Museum, and my guest today is Steve Blair, and we were just talking about some of the grand traditions of Prescott, Arizona. We're talking a little bit about the rodeo, and I think that what's interesting is that Sharlot Hall, she arrived here in 1883 as a young girl. The rodeo began in 1888, and here we are in 2025, and what a community we have to have two organizations that have been part of our community for so long. We're coming up on our centennial as a museum, and I believe this is the 138th year of the world's oldest rodeo. And so in our break, I thought we were talking a little bit about the fact that baseball, horses, you got involved in it all as a young boy here, right?
That was my mom's motto. You need a matter of fact, I was, like I told you earlier, I was so busy, it was crazy, and I thought I was going to put her in the crazy house, but I was always busy and always wanted something to do with my hands. So she finally figured out in order to keep me busy and out of trouble, she needed to do certain things. So she got to the point where she started going to secondhand stores and getting toasters and mixers and different things that wouldn't work and bringing them home to me and challenging me to fix them. And I would do that. So everything to me was a challenge. So there wasn't anything I couldn't take on that I didn't think I could do.
Right.
A lot of them I was good at, and some of them I was horrible at, and you just have to figure that out, as you go through growing up and go through life.
Right.
But one thing that's amazing to me is the heritage, Sharlot Hall Museum, Western Heritage Museum, the rodeo. These are all things that are associated with volunteerism, and they keep going year after year with different volunteers. And those different volunteers, a lot of them didn't know anything about what they're getting involved into until they decided, hey, I want to learn. And then they get energized, and then they want to do more and more and more. So that I'm very appreciative of all the volunteers that do that.
And that's a cornerstone here at Sharlot Hall Museum. We have over 150 solid volunteers that are here consistently. And I think then when we have special activities, we have up over 200 volunteers that help make Sharlot Hall the special place as it is.
Yeah, and some neat things go on here.
Right. And we appreciate the fact that you've just joined our board of trustees here and becoming a partner with us here with Blind Brothers. And we've got a lot of big things happening here. One of the big projects that we're working on right now is we're hoping to conserve and preserve the territorial governor's mansion, and that's a big project that's coming up here that we want to complete by 2026.
Can you talk anything about the new project you might have of taking out a building and building a new? Or is that something that's too new?
Well, there is a property, a house that is no longer being used that's on our property that the museum owns that we hope to demolish in the near future. And we're still trying to define our plans of what will happen on that corner. But it could end up being a new exhibit hall, or very well could become a new building for our collection, so that we can update how we store our collections here at Sharlot Hall Museum.
That would be great, because the more as the museum gets older and older, the more and more things you get gifted to you. And, you just run out of space sometimes to share with the public just what those things are.
That's exactly right. So, Steve, share with me a story about growing up here. Maybe it's about helping build Goldwater Lake. It's coming up on a big anniversary, or about spending time on horseback, or playing baseball. Share a good memory about growing up here in Prescott.
Oh, man, there's a lot of them. I don't know how you share with, cut through one and not share it with another, but, probably the most memorable stuff was hunting and fishing. Mm-hmm. I mean, for the most part. I mean, we did baseball. We did, like I say, we did a lot of things, and we were okay at some and worse at others, but it was always good to get out with your friends. You're out in the country and you're out enjoying the things that you enjoyed. And those memories are getting few and far in between now that the ranches have sold and broken off into residential parcels. And just the fact that the ranchers have been put upon over the years with people dumping trash on them, and they lock them down and they do different things. So it's not like when I grew up where you had the run of the mill at every ranch out Williamson Valley and Big Chino. But those were good times. And I mean, we did a lot of good things, and we did a lot of things that we probably shouldn't talk about during the snowstorm of 1968, and, sledding off the roofs of buildings. I mean, we did get snow back then. But those are all good memories. And Goldwater Lake, before it became a recreational lake, it was a major water source for the city, and It was not available for people to utilize that lake whatsoever. And we would get caught in there fishing, and the guy would come out of the house with his shotgun and rock salt and run us off. But those are just things that we did that weren't necessarily, dangerous. The dangerous part would be going to Hassayampa Lake and having it solid frozen up there. And we owned it at the time, the city did, and we would take Volkswagens up there and race and do donuts on the frozen water, where it didn't work real well one year when the ice wasn't real thick, and we sunk a couple of cars, but that's a different story too. So there was those things that took place, but I'm sure the time has gone by where I can't get in trouble over those.
Well,
so
Steve, I hope that we can have you back on the show here real soon, and we'll talk a little bit more about some of those high school hijinks that make Prescott everybody's hometown.
Oh yeah, we can talk about a lot of things. Those are fun.
All right.
All right. Look forward to seeing all the improvements here.
All right. Thank you so much, Steve.
My pleasure.
See you on the radio here real soon.
All right. We'll see you.
Bye. Looking for the perfect gift? Visit the Bashford House gift shop on the grounds of Sharlot Hall Museum. No admission required. Just walk right up. Explore unique, locally made treasures, a wide selection of history books, and so much more. Located in the historic Bashford House, it's the perfect stop for history buffs, gift shoppers, and curious tourists alike. Visit today and take home a gift they'll cherish. Bashford House Boutique Shop, history gifts and local charm.
Well, folks, that's a wrap. Another edition of Arizona Roundup coming your way from Prescott, Arizona, the mile-high cowboy city and everybody's favorite hometown. Stuart Rosebrook, thank you for your time, and Steve Blair, thank you for your storytelling, and it made for a great program. We're very grateful. And thank you to our sponsors, Helcorn & Holmes, Blind Brothers of Arizona, and the True Value Store, and Pinion Painting. They all make it possible, so if you're doing business with them or you know them, please drop in and say thank you for sponsoring Arizona Roundup. And remember, there are always great things happening at the Sharlot Hall Museum. Their ever-popular Living History Adventure Saturdays kicks off the 2025 season on April the 12th, 2025, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. So mark your calendar, April 12th. Look forward to it. The first Living History Saturday is dedicated to travel in the West. So come out to the museum and discover how those pioneers made those travel trips. It was quite an adventure. Thank you so very much. Remember, charlottehallmuseum.org, charlottehallmuseum.org. We hope that you can come and visit with us and enjoy the time together. So be with us. Now remember to, walk tall, ride strong, do good work, serve others, and pass on the best and blessings of the great Western tradition. Till next time, I'm Stan Houston for the Cowboy Spirit Radio Network. Bye for now.